it was kind of put on my shoulders of why didn't you make it better? And that was the first day that I went and used. And that was also the day that I walked away from my kids. It was the day after my daughter's 2nd birthday. And I went to her birthday party, and I kept going in the bathroom and doing the drugs. And it was like the party was done and I left, and I had that feeling of, I'm not a mom anymore. You know, I had only been using heroin for probably about 3 or 4 days at that point. I was probably at my worst in my drug use. I was no longer making money in what I was doing. I was I had hit rock bottom, as low as I could go. The people that I was selling drugs for were out to, they were looking for my kids. They were looking for the money that I owed them and everything. And I didn't know what to do. I couldn't quit using the drugs because I felt like I needed them to stay numb. But I didn't know how to, just change. And I knew I wanted it. I wanted it more than anything, but I didn't know how, because that was my family. Even though these people weren't great to me, that's who I lived for. They became my God. Because as far as I knew it, God didn't love me. He didn't care about me. And so I felt like if I lost the only thing that I knew was life, then I'd have nothing left anymore. So one day I walked into sort of Wenatchee Valley, and I walked in there getting food so that I could trade it for drugs, and because I was so hard up at that point. And I had my food voucher in my hand, and the volunteer that was there, she was watching me walk out, and she goes, "Amber, can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Why are you so broken? What's wrong? What's hurting you so badly?" And I just broke. I started crying, and my whole story, things that I had held inside for so long, had just kind of spilled out. Within like 20 minutes, they had me a clean and sober house to go to. I went to treatment for quite a while, and worked through so much stuff that I needed to learn, that I'd just never learned in my life. And every Saturday you could have radio time, but it was always the secular stations. And I was really determined to really make my life Christ-focused. And I knew when I would listen to the secular stuff, even just listening to a few songs, that my mind would start going backwards instead of forwards. And so I had to write up this 3-page paper explaining why we needed Christian music in there. And finally, it took probably about a month and a half of fighting, and I was able to start a Sunday morning worship time where we could listen to Positive Life Radio for an hour and a half. And so by the time I left, Positive Life Radio was like our worship time. We'd turn it on for an hour, and then we'd do some time of prayer and whatnot. And so started out with like 3 or 4 girls, and we had, I believe it was like 16 girls towards the end. That would come in every Sunday and just listen to the station and get that encouragement. And it was just really cool. It was cool to take something that was helping me and let it help the rest of the treatment center. Got out and established a life of my own. I got my own house. I got my children back. Once I became stable, I thought, well, I need to find a job. And Bob had said something about, Positive Life Radio's hiring, and I think that you would be a good fit. And so here I am. By this point, I totally was trusting God, and I knew God was working, and I knew who I was in God. But then there's this part of work of trusting myself. And probably about 2 months later, Leanna had called, and we did an interview, and when she hired me, and it was just, first thing I was excited because I had a job. Somebody was willing to trust me enough to give me a job and give me a second chance and use my skills. But I found deeper that I didn't just have a job, I had a family. The Matthew West song, Forgiveness, is a huge one for me right now, because I think that that's a stage in my life that I'm going back through. Just because a lot of people look at forgiveness in a way of being bad, but it reminds me that it's a way of growing and growing closer to God and giving more of me to God and allowing Him to restore what's supposed to be restored instead of me taking it in my control. And it gives me that inspiration to move forward and not be so scared to take those steps.